So let's talk about Finn Balor. Finn Balor's return to SmackDown on Friday was a relatively recent audible called in response to the WWE's decision to change the planned date for the WWE draft. Until the decision was made to change the draft, Finn Balor would have been coming up after SummerSlam. Finn Balor was being saved, but the dates of the draft were changed. With this in mind, Finn Balor would have ended up doing absolutely nothing on NXT for about 3 months if he'd waited, so it's come up now, ahead of time. There was no storyline ready for him in NXT. There was nothing planned that would have kept him busy or anything in that regard. With this in mind, the creative team technically haven't written much of anything for him yet because they didn't know he was coming, hence why his return doesn't necessarily suggest a storyline. They've kept it fairly open, fairly vague as to what the intention is. We could be heading towards a full-on Finn Balor versus Sami Zayn feud. We also might not be. They've left it very plain in that regard. Balor vs Zayn is an easy enough storyline that the WWE could fall back on, though there's no guarantee that Balor will make this year's SummerSlam. Balor will feature regularly, but won't be a top-level player just yet, as he'll be taking a backseat to Roman, Cena, Edge, Rollins, both Usos, Otis and Big E. All of them are ahead of him in the list, and technically we have to ask questions about whether Nakamura is as well. In news that will be considered somewhat divisive, which I am definitely of a negative opinion of, Finn Balor is already being encouraged to bring back the Demon King. The WWE are planning to book him in the same style that they did previously while he was on the main roster. This means that the whole Prince character will sort of be forgotten about. Not something I'm particularly happy with. This would mean that they're heading back to the extraordinary man who can do extraordinary things. It means they're heading back to the Demon King, which we've had quite long discussions about here, why I think it really doesn't work. It means going back to the lazily written good guy with the big goofy smile. I hope that this time around, Balor himself is able to have a little more control over his character. But that's just not something that we can guarantee at the moment. Don't be surprised to see a 3-month feud with Roman in which he loses, paints himself, wins, gets destroyed by Bobby Lashley at Survivor Series, then loses the title right back and drops down the card without a trace. I don't want it, but I definitely think it's coming. Brandon says, does Finn like being on the main roster, or is he one of those who simply prefers NXT? I think he just prefers NXT, mostly because he's better there. His whole character is just better there. It's more him, it's more true to form, it's more close to what he was in Japan. And then you get to the main roster and he's just rebooked and changed. Rob says, honestly, I'm so happy you're on the topic of Balor. How is the perception of Balor backstage? Is this a do-over for him to a climb to the top? I hope so. No. That's the thing. From what I can tell, they're just going to bring him back and essentially forget everything that happened in NXT and say, Balor's back. Let's continue exactly from where we were when he left. I don't think that works. I really don't. But I think that's the plan. The perception of Balor backstage, it depends where you're asking. When it comes to management, the Demon King is really marketable. They can spend they can make a lot of money from that. We should make him paint himself. When it comes to the locker room, people are a big fan of Finn Balor. Really support him and feel he's been very unlucky in his pushes so far, which I feel is absolutely true.